Baker Davis. I am so excited that you're here today, and our audience are so excited that you're here to talk about what you do.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here. So thank you for having me.
No, of course.
Yeah.
It's an honor. It's a really honor. I met Shannon at an event a couple months ago, and she is so down to earth and so gracious and just giving. We're so happy and proud to have you here. So I just want to honor you. Your IMDb credits are outrageous and amazing. So I want to know all about you. So tell us about you. Where did you come from? Because I know you're not from Los Angeles.
No.
So tell us about your journey.
Well, I'm a feature film and television editor, and I grew up in Augusta, Georgia. And my mom was a nuclear chemist, and my dad was an engineer, and they didn't know anything about Hollywood. They didn't know anything about like making movies or anything like that. I don't say they discouraged me, but they just didn't know how to encourage that sort of interest. But I was always writing commercials when I was in the 8th grade and like recording dance videos to Salt and Pepper and just doing lots of stuff that was around television and film. I went to Howard University, HU, and studied radio, TV, film, and around my senior year, our dean at the time was Bill Duke, and Bill Duke is a famous actor,
Yes,
director, yeah, and he knew that I was interested in editing, and he said, "Have you thought about going to grad school at American Film Institute?" And at the time, grad school wasn't anything that I had ever thought I would do because I was always planning to get out of college and get a job. I had interned during college, a few different places. All my summers were spent interning. And so I had a job when I graduated, which was rare at the time and is still rare. And I worked at a company that did political ads, and it was in Washington, D.C., did lots of big campaigns all over the country. And so I learned how to use the equipment. I learned how to use Avid. I learned how to do visual effects on Avid and lots of different techniques that they were using. But I realized that I didn't want to do political ads for the rest of my life. I was not on that schedule to do that type of creative work. So I did, after a year working there, decided to apply to AFI and got in and went. And AFI is like boot camp for filmmakers. A lot of the film schools are that way, but AFI trained us to work in the Hollywood system, to work as professionals in film and television. As soon as I graduated from AFI, I went back to the East Coast, lived in DC for a year, then moved to New York and ended up working in reality television for like 10 years. The story of how I ended up in New York. So I moved back to DC because I knew DC, and I had gotten a job on a show called Dream House on HGTV, and I was an assistant editor. And I watched the shows that I love, and I would watch the credits and see who made those shows. And I loved this show called Celebrity Poker Showdown, because I was in reality TV and, unscripted, and I loved this show, and I loved the way that there was just tons of editing in it. There was tons of packages and cards flying across the screen, and I thought, that's so creative, and it like uses all of your creative juices, and I'd love to work on that. So I wrote a letter, and the woman who received the letter worked at the production company, and she said, "Oh my God, your letter was so great. Are you available to come up?" Or they didn't know I lived in DC either. "So are you available to come in for an interview?" And I was like, "Yes, absolutely." And so I went up, and it was for a night assistant editor position. And I still had my day job in DC, and that job was winding down, but I had overlap. So basically, for like 2 weeks, I would work during the day in DC, and I would get on the 3:00 train and go up to New York and work from like 6 to 2 a.m. and then get on the 3 a.m. train and go back to DC and work that day job. And so it was really hard, but I just thought if I tell them I don't live in New York, they won't give me the job. And this was just an opportunity for me to like move to New York and have a job when I moved to New York. And so that was tough. And I was on the train with a lot of different types of people. But I made it work, I made it work for those 2 weeks and then finally moved my stuff up to New York.
That is the ultimate hustle right there. And how old were you?
22 or 23. Wow. I ended up having a really great career in New York, worked on shows, won Emmys for the shows that I cut. Kathy Griffin, My Life on the D List was like one of my first editing credits, and we won an Emmy. And a really great career. And then towards the 8th year, I just said, I have always wanted to work in narrative. That was always the goal. And I said, I'm going to move back to LA in order to do that, because most of that work is based in LA. I had great shows that I will always remember in New York that like made me the editor that I am. Like working in unscripted made me the editor that I am in scripted. And I moved back out here to LA and was like, I'm going to work in scripted. I'm going to work in scripted, and couldn't find a job and needed money. And, so I ended up working in unscripted for 5 more years out here. And the way that I got into scripted or narrative is I got married and we had a baby, and I was on maternity leave, around the 3-month mark. And 2 of my friends that had written a script and finally got the money together to shoot their feature were like, and we'd always talked about me editing it, and they're like, we're ready to go. And I was like, okay, this is actually good timing because I'm not in the middle of a job that I had to quit or turn down work because I was already not working. And so I cut their feature. That's Carrie, Carlock, and Nick. It was called Armstrong and had the best experience of my life. I was like, this is what I'm supposed to be doing. I'm supposed to be cutting narrative film, talking about story and character and plot and climax and figuring all that out, putting the scene cards on the wall and rearranging things, and then also the editing of it, like the actual pushing the buttons in the machine is one part of what editors do. We do so much more than that. That was an indie film, so it was very little money, and it was a very short time. And then so when I finished that, I went back to cutting reality shows, and I was like, this ain't it. Like I was like in those rooms, like, no, like you've experienced what you love and what like fuels you. And then I was going back to what was fine before, but in the context, I was like, no, this isn't it. And so I decided by the end of that year, I was going to say no to any reality jobs and just go full force into trying to get scripted. So that was tough.
Your credits are just phenomenal. What skill sets do you think, if say that our audience out there are thinking about getting into editing and they love art and they're editing their own movies? Now everyone's everyone's doing iMovies and
of course.
Social media. What skill sets would you say does it take to be a top-notch editor at the levels that you work in television and film and what you publish?
I think writing and comprehension are at the elementary school level, at the middle school level, at the high school level, all of those things. Like if you are a good writer, a good reader, and you comprehend things, and that takes practice. If you're not an automatic person that can figure things out, then it takes practice. It takes being challenged with something and then figuring out a way to make it good or make it better. Writing is a part of that. Reading is a part of that. And if you want to work in film and television, you have to be watching film and television. Like you have to watch everything that's out there because you never know what kind of offer you may get. So, and you also never know what circle you will end up in, and everyone's saying, oh, don't you just love Shogun? And you're like, I've never heard of that. It makes you seem like you're not a part of the film and television community, that you have no clue the brilliant work that's being done. And even the bad stuff, like you should know about it all. You should watch it all. You should expose yourself to all the different types of filmmaking that's being done. As far as like specific to editing, I think being very meticulous, but you have to love being meticulous. If it's a chore to you, then you probably shouldn't pick the editing part of things. And being organized, being a good listener is good for an editor because you are taking in a lot of opinions about what was shot and performances, and you have to take that in and churn it around and have your own opinion of it and be able to speak to that.
Because at your level, they want your input.
They definitely want your input. Rooms that you'll be in as an editor, well, everyone will say, we don't know what to do here. And they turn to you, and you better be able to at least talk about the possibilities. Like, your own opinion of what's shot, your own opinion on ways to make it better, better be able to speak to that. Okay. So how you practice that and how you get that is by watching tons and tons of stuff and being able to critically talk about it.
Do you edit differently for different genres?
Of course. Comedy is fast. You want to edit things quickly. You want to get to the joke, let things play out. As long as the timing is good, you want to be in wide shots. You want movement within the shot. And so you want it to not be so cutty, but as long as the timing is good. For drama, it's a lot of like reaction shots and a lot of like pulling moments out and making them long, intriguing, and dramatic. And so it's for sure you edit different things differently. Yeah.
Well, that's good to know. I'm learning so much. I'm learning with all of you out there.
Yes.
So this is wonderful. I feel like this is a masterclass.
Yeah.
You should be on that masterclass. I think I'm gonna. Are you part of a union being an editor?
Yes, I am. I am part of the Motion Picture Editors Guild Local 700, which is underneath IATSE. So I'm actually on the board of the board of directors of our guild. I mean, it's necessary. Yeah, I mean, that's the way we get our health insurance. That's the way we get our bargaining agreements. So collective bargaining means that everyone is bargaining with the producers together so that you're not out there by yourself and you're not asked to work for less than a certain amount of money, which is called scale. So scale is the least amount of money that they can pay you. Now, of course, a lot of people negotiate way over that, but at least when you're starting out, this is the least amount of money they can pay you. And then the producers pay into our pension and health. So when you work hours under a union contract, your health insurance paid for, which is a very, very big deal.
What does your day look like as an editor? Say that Marvel contracts you.
Editors start the first day of shooting. So you might start a little bit before prepping your room, but you start the first day of shooting. And the first day of shooting, they shoot the dailies, and then you have those dailies on the second day. So your second day, you're cutting, and you try to stay up to camera. So your day is, you usually have an assistant editor. Your assistant editor preps the dailies. You cut those scenes and you put them away, and you try to stay up to camera. So they shoot on day one. You have those things edited that very next day. And that doesn't always happen. Like the Marvel shows, sometimes scenes come in pieces the course of 2 weeks. And so you're always just trying to like organize your things, your days, get through production days, all the shooting days. And then you usually have a week on a feature. You have a week or so to like pull it all together and make it into something. And then you're showing the director. And then the director will have 10 weeks to get a director's cut to show to the studio. And then the studio watches it and they weigh in, and you start previews. I mean, this is not just a day. This is like the whole process.
Okay. Yeah. That's okay. No, that's good. That's a good big overview.
Yeah, this is why it takes so long. It's because people weigh in and the studio weighs in, and then everybody else weighs in, all of the people that come and watch the previews and your general public. So, and you're constantly changing and rearranging and trying to find the best way to put the puzzle together.
I kind of call it massaging. You're kind of massaging the project.
It's literally like sometimes it's blowing the whole thing up and putting it back together a different way and coming up with like, okay, so our opening is not working, or this character is not well liked. And so that is going through every scene that character is in and finding different takes or cutting lines or changing lines. You can do ADR, which is replacing dialogue. And there's just so many ways to put the puzzle together, basically.
Yeah. I'm fascinated by the behind the scenes of this conversation. Everyone, I don't know about you, but I'm fascinated. I'm learning about editing. What are some of the major challenges that you have being an editor? I hate to premise a woman editor. Is there a difference between women and men in this business? Some people say yes.
Yeah, I mean, it's mostly men that are editors, which is interesting because the first, they called them cutters, like, back in the day of old Hollywood, were mostly women because they were seamstresses and they were cutting film. And so they seamlessly transitioned into cutting film from being seamstresses. So they were mostly women. They were called cutters. But now there's mostly men. So that's a challenge is as a woman being listened to and heard and valued in the room that is mostly male is, tough. That's any business, of course. And then getting the job is a challenge. It's just there are so many really, really talented editors, and a lot of times you could be chosen for your list of credits, or you could be chosen for how you click with the project and with the director or the producer. So if you don't have a list of credits, like you say I have great credits, but I don't have necessarily the $100 million film credits. So it becomes tough to say, well, I am perfect for this show about a girl growing up in Augusta, Georgia that wants to get into, like something that you're like, oh, no, that is perfect. I am the perfect vessel to tell that story, to help tell that story. But my credits do not stand up against somebody that's done $1,500 million films and they get chosen.
Let's talk about your successes with editing.
Okay.
Let's share that with the audience.
Working on any studio film is a success because it's just so hard. It's so rare. There aren't a lot of Black women doing it. I count it a success anytime I work with a group of people or a person, a director, a producer, and we click. We have the same sense of humor because even if you're not working on a comedy, you might not be working on a comedy, you might be working on a heavy drama, but you are just in the room and you're vibing back and forth. Anytime that you find someone that you really like working with, I count that as a success. Now, no matter how it does at the box office or how it does at the awards, I just think it's not rare, but it is special. I'll say that. I somebody that you're like, oh no, I want to work with them. Whatever they're doing, I want to work with them. I want to do that, So, and I've met a few people that are like that, and I think that's a success.
And what are you doing now? You're working on a project now. Can you talk about it?
I'm working on a show for Ryan Murphy, and it's called Grotesquerie, and it airs in September coming up. And it's horror, and this is my first time doing horror, like straight horror. And it's been really interesting.
Congratulations on this project.
Thank you.
I'm going to watch it because I want to see your work.
Grotesquerie.
Okay, I would say that word. I know I can't pronounce it. Shannon, I am so thankful that you came. Thank you again for coming. You are so inspiring, and the courage it took for you to come all the way from New York to LA and do your thing and be successful and continuously working towards being successful. I really love that story. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Of
This was
course.
fun. I love it.
I know. We always have
I
fun
could,
here.
You know I could talk, so.
Yeah, we both can talk. That's what I'm doing.
That's when we met. I'm like, yeah, we're gonna be talking a lot.
Yeah, we're in the industry, so we have no problems with marketing. Oh, one thing I wanted to say, are you on social media?
I am. I'm on Instagram, Shannon Baker Davis, just my name written out.
Okay. Thank you so much for coming in and tuning into the YouTube channel of Up and Comers of Hollywood with Shannon Baker Davis, an award-winning editor. If you want more of these type of interviews, go ahead and subscribe. With that, be kind and stay true to yourself. Thank you so much.